Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Sakirat Mahal, and I will be your host for the day. I'm thrilled to introduce our expert guide for today's discussion on data strategy. For 15 years, he has been shaping the field of business intelligence, not from the sidelines, but by leading teams at the heart of enterprise digital transformation. He's translated vision into reality for more than 200 organizations, specifically focusing on achieving their data management and total cost of ownership goals. That wealth of practical knowledge is exactly what we'll tap into now. A very warm welcome to Mr. Dinesh Kalyanasundaram, the President and CEO of Prism Analytics. And our guest of honor for the day is Mr. Manu Ravichandran. Manu is a thought leader with close to 2 decades of experience transforming manufacturing operations through business insights. He leads the strategy, product innovation, and R&D investment for the Plex Analytics suite at Rockwell Automation, shaping solutions that enhance profitability and efficiency for customers. With a background in software development and degrees in computer science and engineering, Manu is adept at bridging a gap between cutting-the-edge technology and real-world business needs. His expertise span data product strategy, implementation consulting, and building scalable solutions that drive meaningful impact. Prior to Rockwell Automation, Manu held a key role at Plex Systems and National Instruments Corporation, where he spearheaded efforts to advance data-driven operation resilience. Dinesh, Manu, the stage is all yours.
So, Manu, let's talk about BI and data products. Most people don't get the opportunity to build products ground up, especially when it's involving enterprise data. So, I'd like to hear your thoughts on some of those situations that happened to you as you were progressing in your journey. How did you approach data products? How did you approach building products? Did you have the opportunity to start from scratch? Did you just have to enhance products that were already existing? Tell us a little bit about parameters that you were involved with during those times.
So this is a very interesting question because from my experience, it's very rare to get an opportunity to build something from the ground up, from scratch. So most in 90% of the cases, it's been existing environments or ecosystems that we had to enhance with data products or build data products within a very constrained enterprise environment. So that basically is the starting point for most people, I think, right? Because your organization has been around for a while, you have enterprise systems collecting information for quite some time, and then we want to harness the data and get meaning out of it, make more sense out of it. So that's always a tricky thing to navigate. From my experience, what we've always tried to do, right, in all of the teams that I've worked in, I like to start with the people involved in any ecosystem. So you always have those people, process, and technology pillars within an organization. It's very tempting to start with the technology piece, right? Because that's front and center, and we all want to embrace the latest technology stack and work with the best vendors and so on. But what I like to usually start with is the people and key decisions that we're trying to make within an organization, right? From a data product standpoint. Products, in my opinion, whether these are data products or general enterprise products are painkillers, right? They're not nice to have like vitamins. And vitamins are important, but painkillers are really where the value is. And starting with pain points that we want to make decisions around using data is probably the logical place to start. And people is where you should start. So the standard operating procedure, for at least for me, has been, start with the people, look at the key decision makers or people trying to make decisions using the data. They're usually constrained in many ways by their access to data today, or it could be quality issues, it could be a host of issues, right, where they're not able to get the information they need. So you start there, and then followed by the process. In any organization, you typically have very specific business processes involved, and then data-driven decision making is a part of that process. So understanding that process also, I think, is very critical if you're building effective data products. So once you have a good handle on both of these, then I think it's appropriate to look at the technology stack and see, what can we do with what we have, and then if we need to bring in something new, we make some well-grounded decisions, right, as opposed to just stuffing technology in.
Yeah, it's great response. I think putting technology first is an all too common practice. We've seen that enough times. And as you go through this, even when you retrospectively look at what went wrong when projects fail or when initiatives fail, they don't look at this element. You don't start with the technology, to your point, and say, this is the technology I have, I'm going to put this to best use and start to build the applications or build a product. So as far as our relationships with our clientele are concerned, from a product standpoint, I'd say there were two major points of failure. One is usually a design failure. So we have these the product managers come in, they have an eye towards the end goal, the eye towards the end state of what the product looks like. And it's not just about aesthetics, but what gets forgotten in the mix typically is the user experience, the process of building this from a design first principle. And a lot of these product managers unfortunately overlook that aspect to it. Later on, as you're building this, you realize that a lot of the business requirements and just the dependencies between different elements in the application should have all been taken care of during the design phase and were not taken care of during the design phase. That is one fallacy that we repeatedly see. Another very common flaw that we see is the one size fits all approach. Usually they go towards an end, a perfect end state of a product, go try to build it all in one cycle. Then the first customer starts using the product, and then he or she comes up with their own set of, this is what I want, and this is what I want. So taking all of that into account and building something that's flexible, adaptable to all of your customers, kind of having a good idea of the voice of the customer from the get-go, and not the absence of that seems to affect a lot of projects negatively. So I guess you have that product owner type perspective to this. We've done this for multiple clients, bringing product visions to reality. So I see we see different perspectives to this, different sides to this. So yeah, I mean, what in general, what are some things that people do right here, Manu? How can you set yourself up for success as a product owner?
And something that you mentioned just now, right, is the adaptability of what you're building. I think that is going to be key, because if you try to bite off too much at once, if you're trying to solve for all of those use cases, you very rarely are successful. From all of the successful projects that I've been on or products that we've built, one common denominator has been that we started with like a minimum viable platform that we had a small number of users in, because your understanding of the problem space actually grows as you're building it and learning from it. Right? So you actually learn what you need after you've built a small version of it and you started using it. And so it's very difficult to predict the future. I'm sure if we can predict the future, we'll be doing different things. And so you start learning more about what you actually need after you're working with a partner or internal teams rolling something out. And so keeping that initial footprint small. Having some early wins also gets people excited. Usually for analytics domain area applications or data products, there's a lot of friction also with adoption. And so one area that I've personally struggled with is, you can have the best data product or embedded analytics features available, but if people don't use it, right, you're not going to learn anything, and then it's going to end up being on the sidelines forever.
That's a fantastic segue into what I have, the next topic of discussion. Monetized applications. I know you have built a few of those yourself. Monetized application with the context of business intelligence or with the context of data analytics involving enterprise data to whatever extent. Now, can you talk to us about what kinds of conversations you have about monetized applications, monetized products? How does that differ from a generic product? Can you give us a little bit of an idea about that?
In my experience, right, I've built both monetized versions of products and then products that were really more of a service-based value-added nature. And I think the key difference is monetized products need to be very, very focused on a specific domain and a specific subset of problems within domain, especially when you start, right? And because you have very tight personas that you're building for. And I always like to start with personas that you're building for. Even if it's a non-monetized product, like who are these personas within your organization who are going to be using these products? And so those personas need to be very well defined, especially for monetized products, because unless you're improving their ROI, you're not going to be successful with monetized products. Whereas in a traditional enterprise environment, if you're building for 30 different potential personas, you're future-proofing things, you have a lot more flexibility in building things you don't need now, whereas you don't have that luxury with monetized products. So persona definition, I think, is very, very key. The definition of understanding of the problem space and the job functions that you're trying to help with, that's another key differentiating factor for success versus those that don't work as well. And then third is monetized products. Really, I think people don't focus enough on the cost of customer engagement and customer adoption of it. Because internal products or internally facing enterprise products, you have a lot longer lead time where customers can be trained or users can be trained and onboarded. With monetized products, you have to really treat it, especially in today's world where we're all used to SaaS products that make life very easy or have fantastic usability, right? Like you were saying, user experience. If it's not engaging, they won't adopt it and they won't stick to it. Those are the three areas where I think usually there are missteps and monetized products fail. And then with monetized products, if you have invested quite a bit, right, you don't have multiple swings at the plate. You basically have one or two tries, and if you don't get it right, then you basically have to shelve the whole thing. So that sense of urgency is also there.
Absolutely. You only get sometimes not even 3 strikes, like you mentioned. So on our side, being that enterprise that works, organization that works with enterprises with their data and BI infrastructure, data and BI applications. What we see on our end is that the focus is on the core functionality. The focus seems to be a little disproportionately on the payment functionality and disproportionately less on the integration side of things and the user journey. So imagine this situation where data flows through a lot of these different pipelines. They're in different levels of granularity. They come from various disparate sources. So data coming from all of these places, trying to find itself in the form of a monetized application, a white labeled application, or just as a dashboard, which means product owners and the product people generally tend to devalue the importance of where the data's been. Sometimes just the act of having good data quality, good mastered entities is so undervalued that the focus seems to be little over the top with respect to just the payment functionality. So if you don't have a really good user journey, then I don't think people are going to worry about the payment elements of it, the monetized elements of it. The value of it ceases to exist, in my opinion. So that's been our experience in general.
Yeah, absolutely. In many cases, I've seen that if you have a good value added monetizable product, you talked about payment functionality within a product, right? But that really shouldn't be the focus, because if you're tying yourself to that being the focus, you're missing the big picture in many cases. And the big picture is all of the things that you mentioned, right? All of the sources of ingestion for your data, the quality of your data, the stewardship element also, right? Because data is not a one and done thing. Because a lot of times I've seen, we'll build solutions that we get deployed, and initially there's a mass cleanup and stewardship effort that's done to make that initial release successful. But after that, it's an ongoing process. I like to use the analogy of a water processing plant in your city, right? They're constantly working behind the scenes to make that water safe for you, right? And you treat data as input to your data products like that. It's magically doesn't happen. It's a constant investment. It's critical infrastructure that is needed. It's not the faucets in your house or the fancy things that you have in your kitchen, but it's the water processing facility where the focus needs to be and the investment needs to be. And so I think when you miss that big picture, no matter what you have on the user experience side, even sometimes some foundational things can completely derail your effort.
100% agree. I think you had a great analogy here. The things that happen behind the scenes, also intentionally or unintentionally, you are providing great segues into the next topic of discussion. So I think the next topic of discussion is, I think you wanted to ask something about the migration to the cloud, right?
Yes. This is one where we've had more, in my experience, we've had more failures than successes. because when the cloud first came out, most enterprises had on-prem installs, and they had heavy legacy stacks that they've spent quite a bit of investment on. And all of a sudden, when the cloud came, your CIO or CTO would go to Amazon's web conference or go to Oracle or Salesforce, right? And they're like, "Oh, cloud's easy. Just press a button and it happens." The devil is always in the details, even for on-prem software, right? But I feel that the cloud, the level of complexity is usually understated, severely understated and underestimated. So I'm curious what thoughts you have on your experience from this.
That's a great question, by the way. And we could go on just about this for hours. So we're talking total cost of ownership. And just like everything else that we've talked about, or just like the last point you brought up, total cost of ownership is such a simple term for a lot of detail. So typically, when somebody wants to move their infrastructure into the cloud, and a lot of times I will say that, when you do all the math involved, when you understand the value that you get by moving into the cloud, and even from a business outcomes perspective, when you're planning for AI readiness and just staying on top of the technology world, being on par with your competition, moving to the cloud is often the right decision. But that's not to be just stated. You shouldn't be doing that just because somebody else is doing that. And what's very understated all the time is the hidden cost element to this. So look at this as two different aspects to this. Data storage. So what repositories do you need? What repositories are you currently using? This means your applications, your databases. How are you using your databases? Your transactional systems, your analytical systems. All of these have to find their way into the cloud effectively with as little of a long-term cost as possible. Yes, it's going to cost you, some amount of money, time, resources in the shorter run, but it's important for you to document this and understand this with, sitting down with somebody that's done this before, and especially with your data infrastructure. There's another element that is very underutilized, understated, is the cloud native elements. First off, get your functionality as you have it today, replicate it in the cloud. So what does that mean? How can you make that happen? You're not just listening to a few cloud providers tell you, yeah, this is all easy. You have the cost calculator. You should be done, up and running, moving. But getting native functionality today, what reports are your people getting today that they will struggle to get when the lift and shift is completed? So I think this is an exercise, just like the previous points that we talked about. This in effect is that design process that you go through, completely understand your costs, completely understand how to be as cloud native as possible. With that, let me ask you this, Manu. Have you gone through checkpoints like this? Have you done something like this? What were the conversations when this happened to you?
Yes, so we did a few of these where we had very heavy enterprise footprints and we wanted to move to the public cloud for various reasons. Cost is definitely a factor. Regulations are another one that is not talked about, especially in the data world, right? Because Europe has very different regulations with respect to what data you can capture, where it has to be stored, and so on. And I think the rest of the world is also catching up. I think the US, we can get away with a lot more than other parts of the world. And so the cloud also gives a lot of flexibility from that perspective. Right? If you want to store it in a certain region, that checks the boxes from a legal standpoint. So cost is one, regulations and the legal framework is another one. Performance is another one too, because sometimes when you have legacy applications that but you have a global footprint for your organization, the cloud really helps with those aspects as well. And then where I think the cloud really also shines is the ability to scale, especially now, and I think it's only going to get more and more evident with AI and all of the AI infrastructure that is needed. Is if you're building anything, on-demand scaling based on your user base, I think is a big advantage of the cloud. So those are the typical things that we have looked at. Lots of things have worked well, and there are definitely some things that we've underestimated. But what we have also underestimated, right, and this is in very niche products that I've worked in, is the cloud may seem easy to do, but there's a lot of hidden complexity in doing it. And so you really need the benefit of somebody who's done it many times before to guide you through that, right? I mean, internal, external, that's a different question altogether. But it's very dangerous and expensive to learn on your own, especially when you're doing this, right? The domain expertise and people have done this multiple times, I think, is also a key. So skill sets of teams or people doing this is often also in the back burner. You don't think about it much. We'll just do it with whoever we can work with, and I think that also can be very dangerous.
Very well put. I mean, we all have this problem of trying to make make best, do best with the resources that we do have, whether it's people resources or infrastructure resources or any other organizational resources. But it's always, sometimes it's better to let the experts do their thing because that's what they're good at. That sounds good. So again, from a next, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, you'll pay for it twice, right? You'll do it once, and it's like me trying to fix something in the house. My wife will warn me, right? You're going to spend your time doing it, you'll break something, and then you'll pay for it anyway.
Absolutely. That's why I don't even attempt it in my house. Anyway, so let's talk about the BI platform migration. I'll let you ask the question, and then you can talk about this as well.
Yeah, and so BI platforms, BI has been around for quite some time, right? Decades at this point, like decision support systems, and they've evolved to what we have today. And different companies are at different stages. Everyone wants better access to data. They want to be more efficient, which is what BI also promises.
Yeah.
But sometimes BI platform migrations can be very, very disruptive. Right? Unlike other systems within your organization, if your BI platform breaks, it's probably the one that will get the C-suite most upset about, right? Because they won't have the numbers they need. Well, it could be spreadsheets, it could be dashboards, but this is what is used to run your business, right? You work on the business using BI platforms. Your ERP software, Salesforce enablement, all of that is you're working in the business. BI platforms you help you work on your business, right? And that's critical. And so anytime you're planning a migration, you're adopting something new, there's risk involved. They can be very disruptive if not done correctly. And so I'm curious, like from your experience, what thoughts would you like to share on those?
So again, now with all the AI capabilities, now with everybody in the last few years moving into the cloud ecosystem, seems like there's a rush to change everything and change how business is done technology wise. So which means that you're also in a rush to make all of this working very quickly without any disruptions to your business, providing as much functionality that you have today, but also being conscious of the future and being in readiness for agentic AI and whatnot. So now I'll bucket this into two main categories of why someone would want to move from one BI platform, and in a lot of cases why that's justified even. And we'll also talk about the benefits of this. So we're talking about first being negotiating leverage with legacy BI platforms. There is, you mentioned footprint earlier, and there's just, as you build more and more footprint, just without you knowing it, without the people in the organization knowing it, you are building up a huge friction to a move, to a large enterprise move. And just like you mentioned, if moving a few reports can create a hassle within the organization, if you have to carry the whole load of entire footprint that you've built, then the friction to that is extremely huge. What that does to your organization is it reduces your negotiating leverage with BI platforms. The unfortunate thing is these BI companies know this, so which means they can increase the licensing costs, especially if it is not SaaS based, core based, and and in those cases, you're just because you don't want to take on that burden today, unconsciously accepting to pay a lot more and unconsciously giving up a lot of the leverage. So I think that is one of the most important reasons why tactically companies want to move from one BI platform to another. Another I'd say is the ability to work with agentic AI platforms, the large language models, the chat GPTs of the world, and inside of Microsoft Azure, things that your organization use to build AI agents. So your BI platform has to be working in tandem with these platforms, and they need to take information, provide information to the agents, or work with the agents which means technologically they have to be lockstep with these agentic AI platforms. What you find with these BI platforms is oftentimes that's not the case. And decision makers that understand this early on make the start to take the steps to make that BI platform move early. But people that you don't want to go to us when you're building a particular agentic AI set of agents that you're building for your organization that accomplish automation of certain functions. You don't want to go on the journey and find out that your BI platform is not coming along. So I think these are some of the things that we are noticing. So I say bucketed into two reasons. You'd say negotiating leverage and just lack of a product roadmap with these legacy BI platforms, and just readiness for AI, readiness for machine learning, data science. Those kinds of elements are probably the most important reasons why companies are planning to are taking on this large initiative of moving from one platform to another. What have some of your experiences been in this, Manu?
Yeah, absolutely. So vendor, especially if you're working with vendor tools, if you have homegrown systems, it's a different conversation altogether. And there are plenty of reasons not to do homegrown systems because there's best of breed tools that are available now. Right? 20 years ago, you could have built your own homegrown system. But it's very similar to what you've been describing. A lot of times, I feel like internal teams don't think far ahead enough to see what their needs can be in a few years, and they're also not keeping up with the technology trends, right? I mean, we all use Copilot, ChatGPT in a personal context, but in the work context, it's still harder for, I think, companies to wrap their heads around how these things can be used within their enterprise. There's a distinct disconnect, I feel, where everybody wants to use it, but it's not apparent, like, how can this external entity talk to all of the data we have and help us make decisions. The fact that these newer technologies are non-deterministic causes an additional layer of concern because you're used to, if you have a BI system and your reports, right, you go run the same report 10 times, you'll get the same answer for the same data, but you not necessarily get the same response back from Copilot or an agent that you're building, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty that creeps in there as well. And what I've seen is some platforms or vendors, if you will, I think, understand this, and some of them build for it and try to get ahead of it. But some companies are more reactive. They're like, we're just going to wait and see. But sometimes waiting and seeing means, your customers suffer, right? The customers don't really have, even if they want to take advantage of it, they suffer. And they can pay for it not just in terms of losing out on technology adoption, but they can be losing out on the actual ROI of adopting these newer technologies. So if you have some of these AI-enabled technologies, for example, and if you have a vendor that supports that actively, that translates into direct ROI. If you're spending 2 hours answering a question that is now in 10 minutes, you can answer that question, that is money that you're saving. And companies love that. So in some ways, your vendor partner, whoever that might be, them not keeping up with this actually is costing you money. They may not be even charging you more, but it's actually costing you money by not adopting it, right? And so those forcing functions also, I think, are not well understood by internal stakeholders sometimes.
Those are some fantastic points, Manu. I will say that I have a view about the deterministic things that you talk about. So about 5 years back, we were talking about centers of excellence, which means you own the data, you're the IT team, you have control of the data, provide exposure of the data with the row level security, with the authorization that your groups need to use, and create that center of excellence like that, right? Now, it's kind of become this question of not everything needs to be deterministic. So sometimes, you don't want to design a programmatic solution around all the problems that are there. You want to be able to give them the platform of for example, a Copilot studio, and let them ask the question. And sometimes you might not get the same answer that you did yesterday, but you might still discover something in the process.
Right.
And it's about adapting various business outcomes and how your data answers your questions. I feel there should be a balance between the deterministic approach and the complete, whims and fancies of today's large language models. And you kind of let the people play around with it, of course, within guidelines, within reason, within compliance, all of those factors. So excellent.
I had a follow-up question on that.
Please.
And one that I commonly run into is, these agents. I find it very useful to think of them as an extension of your workforce. Right? I remember reading somewhere that IT will become the new HR in 15 years, where you'll have more agents managed by the IT department than people that are managed by your HR department.
Yeah.
And so, we're not all there yet, but we're only, maybe a few years away from when you have some sort of collaboration software in your company and you have agents joining as people, right? And helping you with different tasks.
Yeah.
And so, that goes back to the deterministic versus non-deterministic, because when you have a new hire, there is a learning curve for that new hire until they understand the context of your business and what makes your business tick, right? And so inherently people are also non-deterministic. That's not a reason to blindly trust agents.
Yeah.
But I think companies and enterprises, if they understand it and look at it from that perspective, it lowers that barrier to adoption of some of this as well.
100%. So I will say this, in response to that, I think sometimes you need that little bit of a jerk, and for you to realize where the world is going. And I was in one of the conferences, and there was in a smaller session with about 50 people in the room, and the speaker said, how many people have AI agents as part of their org chart? And it was a very astounding response. There was actually a few people that put their hands up. For me, just the idea of having AI agents in an org chart is still out in the future, but some people have actually actually have that today. So what that tells me is that I think we start by saying, what functions can we automate today? How can we make our business, how can we take a group of people and say, how can we make their functions a little bit easier? What automated solution can we do? Of course, we've had robotic process automation in the past. There's still a lot of tools that do that. Outside of that, there's also teachers, there's also knowledge bases that we carry constantly that can be provided to them. Those are multitudes of meetings that we have that become, that serves as a medium to transfer knowledge from one person to another. And then there's questions for which there's follow-up meetings and whatnot. So a lot of these extremely inefficient processes can be automated. And maybe one day, maybe I can put my hand up when somebody asks me, how many agents do you have in your org chart? And that's not the end goal, but I think that's just a starting point of where people are already going.
Absolutely. There are points within your organization, like job functions within your organization, where I personally don't see a future where entire job function is going to be completely automated, right? Because there's always an element of human in the loop is needed for decision making, right? For reliability reasons or whatever those reasons might be.
Yes.
But I feel delegating some of those decision cycles, right, where it doesn't really need a lot of it just needs enough information about your business to make some decisions. Delegating some of that frees up the intellectual capacity or the cognitive capacity of your organization to focus on more value-added things. And the key is making that, understanding what the difference is, right? Which of these things we can reliably delegate to these agents to do reliably over time, right? And we're just monitoring them, treat them as interns, whatever you want to call that, right? But then focusing your employees and training them to focus on those higher value-added tasks. And there's a side benefit, I think, to this as well, because when you have very experienced people, and this is common in manufacturing or some of the more traditional industries, where very experienced people are, just want to retire and they don't want to do this all the time, right? They want to go spend time on beach and retire. And oftentimes you don't have enough time to train somebody who can be equally good, if not equally good, at least partially as good. And so starting to have agents shadow people like this, this is one of the areas that's close to me, is like, hey, if we have agents shadow very experienced people, can these agents learn from these people? And then the transition to the next person becomes easier. The agent can actually facilitate the transition and start helping that new person without a huge loss in productivity. Right? And it doesn't have to be manufacturing or construction. It could be any knowledge work in your organization even. And I think the direction we're going in is towards that. It's just there's a a line that we have to cross where enough of a base starts adopting this, and there are proof points for it.
100%. We have in our world, where we go to an hour-long meeting and we say this could have been an email, or or we go to multiple meetings and still don't come out with all our questions answered.
Right.
I think there's just significant scope in some of these agents, whether it's how you say they do it, shadow these people with knowledge base or not, or just providing them with knowledge bases that you have currently. Just give them the guardrail. Yes, does it take time for us to define the guardrails? Is there security around it? I think it's just a lot better for us to think about those guardrails and think about what problems are worth solving, as opposed to dealing with these inefficiencies and living with them, and just living with insecurities that are these agents here to replace us, things like that. So if we know how to build these agents, how to use these agents, we're just that much better off.
Yeah, and I think we've done this transition from in-house software to software that's off the shelf, right? In a way, we delegate a lot of the business processes and the execution of that to an external entity, right? Instead of having in-house teams that built it. So for 20 to 30 years, we've done this transition where now we trust, even within large, sensitive legal environments, we trust off-the-shelf software to solve the problem.
Yep.
And I think this is a natural evolution there, where now you have like agents that are now delegating some of your higher order functions within your organization. And so, the companies manage that risk effectively. Not everything needs to be built in-house. We understand that there is a cost associated with it. Somebody else has economies of scale and they can provide that software. But we provide guardrails and we delegate the piece of software off the shelf, right? And so similar model here. It's a little more tricky, but I think it will get there eventually. That's where I think there has to be champions within each organization. This is the hardest part of my job, is when we try and go sell companies on AI-driven features on a plant floor like manufacturing. There's a lot of resistance because of the perceived risk, right? How reliable is this going to be? Is it life or death situations, right? And having one or two champions within an organization and building good partnerships there is the way to go, because then you can have you can mitigate risk, make sure that you convince one or two people that others trust and grow through that. And for those, if anyone's listening and you have an organization where you want to develop your in-house AI expertise, right? Designate one or two people as champions to go learn about it instead of just thrusting it on everybody, right? Because those one or two people will be the ones who will de-risk it for you.
Yeah. And that's all. I mean, the act of the most important thing there becomes, how do you communicate that within the organization and tell them that these technologies, these improvements, these enhancements are just here to make things better for everybody else.
Yes.
Because just like them, I will admit that, the first question when we talked about AI is AI going to replace my job? It is a natural question. But if I'm powered with it, if I can understand what it does,
yes,
then I'd be better off if I'm open to the possibility of helping new technologies, the agents, the large language models, the deterministic approaches, the non-deterministic approaches, all of those things to make my work better and in turn make my organization better.
Absolutely. I mean, there's real value add, right? You will, I think if done right, we can have massive value add, not just from a balance sheet perspective, but also from a quality of life perspective for your workforce. There's a huge value add to having these, provided you do this correctly.
And I think it's a microcosm of everything we're dealing with in this world, politically speaking, and I'm not very political, politically speaking, and in the sport world, most problems are, in the minds of the people. And if that opens up just a little bit, it almost sounds like I'm talking to my 10-year-old son, to make him try a new dish or a new recipe. So sometimes when you open ourselves to it, we just never know what we find. It's just the world's your oyster.
Yeah, there's the chaos that we're dealing with. You really need computers to help us manage the chaos better. AI, I feel, is almost like a new discovery made, like discover a new drug, right? And it makes your life really better because you're struggling with the condition. Because we really we don't have problems. I feel like we have predicaments that we're in today. Like problems have solutions. Some predicaments you really have to manage.
Yes.
because there's no permanent solution to these things. And so,
What?
as much as possible, technology help you manage these predicaments. I think will help companies and people in general too.
Agreed. Agreed. They don't come without their problems though, but we have to manage that. And
Yes, you have to
yeah,
manage it.
yeah. In any case, let me ask you this: if you know rewind 15 years, 20 years, how many ever years you think you go to a point where you're getting into the world of products, getting into the world of data, what did what would you tell yourself from the past, and what does that your experience teach Manu from 15 years back?
Yes. I so if I can go back in time and tell myself one thing, I would basically tell myself that data products are more like icebergs and less like large mountains, right? Because the majority of the risk and the complexity is hidden behind something, right? It's hidden below the waterline.
Yeah.
And so the key is we very often underestimate what we can't see, especially from a data products perspective. Like the volume of your data, the validity of your information, because there's a very strong data foundation that is needed in order to be successful with the data products. And through lots of experience, right? And there's someone I think said, might have been my dad back then. He always had these funny lines where he said wisdom is just another word for a long list of mistakes, right? That you learn from. That those are some hard lessons where if you underestimate the risks involved, especially for data products, your platform is not sound, you don't have buy-in from users, you don't have executive buy-in. All of those things are critical in order to make that top 20% shine and get value out of. And so usually our whoever we work with, right, the sales pitch it's always an inverted picture, right? Where there's like, it's very easy to do, press a button and it goes away, the problem goes away, right? And there's no easy button for this. It needs to be carefully, methodically planned out, and but if done right, then it pays dividends for decades. You just have to make that initial investment, right? And so once you do that, then you reap the benefits for many years. But it's that initial investment that you have to make and be disciplined. The devil is really in the boring details that nobody wants to focus on. But if you get that right, I think everything else will fall in place.
It's a great response. Unfortunately, my response is not going to be that deep. For me, I'll say this. Maybe I'll give you two responses on this. One is a data-related data and a business intelligence type answer, which is saying, I think I've benefited the most, in the last 15 years from taking a why approach. I come from a manufacturing background also, and we had this process called the 5 whys. So keep asking why until you uncover the actual root cause of the problem. And with respect to the application build world, with respect to the data world, I think it would serve the development community, the business analyst community, the technical project manager community, to really understand why it is we're doing what we're doing. And a lot of times that is lost in the weeds. We just continue to do our things, and we just need to tick the boxes and say, okay, we're done for this. We're here, whatnot, and that needs to be done. I mean, I'm not against execution at all. All I'm saying is that understanding the data behind the why and just following that trail has helped me a lot. Which means it has allowed me to stop at some point in time and say, I don't think this makes sense at all. When everybody else at that time was focused on just checking a tick box and saying, I'm done with this activity, I'm done with this activity, without asking why. And I've been on the other side of that as well. So I think just philosophically, just understanding the value that your set of actions, if you're a developer, whatever reports you're building, whatever data elements you're putting together, what does that mean to an organization? And what does it mean if what you're putting together is absent? If those questions will give you an insight into the larger vision for why these things are being done. So that, I think, might be the biggest lesson I've learned. Philosophically, I'll just say that if somebody could tell me things would be fine, and just like we talked about AI and said, oh, is this going to replace me? The fear of the uncertainty was there for me. And
Right.
if you just say, trust your skills, trust your abilities, ask the right questions,
Yeah.
and be ready to participate with your intelligence, because you have intelligence. Bring
Yes.
that to the table, and don't be worried to, don't be fearful to express what you're thinking. Those are some of the philosophical things that I usually think about if I had to give myself some advice from 20 years back.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. The five whys are indispensable, not just in manufacturing, right? In any industry or any aspect of problem solving, and especially relevant to data related things, because you're trying to make some critical decisions, and being able to detach yourself from the day-to-day execution and taking the higher level view and asking yourself why are we doing this, I think will be critical. And sometimes the answer might be stop doing something, right? Or don't do it,
Yes.
because you might be you might be doing something, making something worse.
Yes. Yes. And if it's just one head thinking about that, as
Mhm.
opposed to you doing this exercise with a group of people,
Mhm.
with a shared vision, with a shared sense of participation in this, I think there's a lot of benefits that could be had in this.
Okay.
Um, yeah. This is great, Manu. I mean, this turned out from some serious conversations into philosophical discussions into the path of AI and a lot of different things in between. I had a lot of fun doing this, Manu.
As well.
Uh, yeah, and this is fantastic. So I'll give you a chance to say some parting words. But at Prism Analytics, we are glad to have a conversation of this nature with someone who has a product background, who's been a decision maker with organizations, making some of these decisions at various checkpoints. A big learning experience for our audience, I'm sure. But it's been a lot of fun for me having this discussion with you.
Thanks, Dinesh. And I'm glad we had this conversation. The main thing I'd like to leave our audience with is, regardless of whether you're building a monetized product or even looking at, internal projects that you're working on, adopting a product focus, I think really benefits whatever you're trying to do. And so that, I think, doesn't need to be an externally facing, customer facing monetizable product, right? Even internally, start thinking about whatever efforts internally and within an enterprise as products that you're building, because it gives you a different view of things, right? You'll have clearly defined owners, you'll define your people and org chart much better. It simplifies your processes. You'll have more standardization starting to creep in, right? Especially if you want to think about it as a product, and then you won't miss as many of those foundational things. So trying and shifting it away from just a project mindset, to something that's a product/program mindset, where think of these things as long-lived things within your organization that get investment and get improved upon over time, right? And partners can help you. You can do it in-house. That's secondary. But adopting that product and slash program approach really benefits, because it has significant ROI as well. So, that's what I'd like to leave our audience with. And Dinesh, I enjoyed the conversation. We should do it again soon.
I think we will, like it or not, Manu. This is great. So let's continue doing this.